All right, folks, I believe that we are live. Let me make sure the sound and everything is happening.
Can you hear
Yes.
me?
Okay, because folks in the chat know that I tend to pop on and not have audio. So,
I
all
hate
right,
that.
and yes, I see that we are live up there. So, hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we have a special guest, and that is Ericka Redic, and she is running for Congress in Vermont, and
Yes.
she has a really fun story behind her campaign.
Yes.
And yes, okay, people in the chat are saying that they can hear me. So
Excellent.
I'm figuring about an hour with
Excellent.
Liberty Baby
Liberty
hanging
baby.
out downstairs.
She's gonna hang in.
So,
She's gonna hang in there for us. I just know it.
I mean, she's appeared on some podcasts with me, but it might be hard to like interview you with like a bouncing baby that's trying to get the microphone because that's what she likes to do.
That is a thing
So
I
we're
like to
gonna
do.
skip saying hello to everyone in the chat, though I see you. I see you in there. And we're just gonna jump right into it. So, how would we like to start this off? How did you end up running for Congress?
Well, let's start with the fact that if people are paying attention to what's going on in Washington these days, things are pretty out of control. When you've got Congress writing its budget, factoring in $3 trillion of debt. So they wrote the budget with $3 trillion in debt figured into it. And you're going, okay, now if I did some stuff like that in my personal budget, I wouldn't be able to make it through. And the federal government plans to pay for all of that stuff by taking it from me, by taking my hard-earned labor at the end of a gun. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people don't understand um, when libertarians say things like taxes are theft. It's because the federal government's going to come and take your money, whether you like it or not, and they can throw you in jail if you don't give it over to the IRS. So,
Yep.
and in a state like Vermont, my husband, we're not rich. Okay. My husband and I are very standard, probably middle class type income, maybe. And actually, we're probably like average for Vermont. And they take 60% of our income. So our effective tax rate is 60%. And
Wow.
we are not rich people. Okay. Vermont median income is $59,000. So you we're not rich. And so it's just this like between the mandates, trying to force people to take medical procedures that they don't want, that their doctor might even tell them not to. And you
Oh
just
yes,
see,
we have to call it the hokey pokey. If it
oh, the
comes up,
hokey
we have to call
pokey.
it the hokey pokey, or
I
else
know.
we get flagged.
That's why I'm like, I don't even know what to say anymore that you're allowed to say. So if we're doing the hokey pokey and we're turning ourselves around, and that's still not good enough, right? You got to do more. And then the government's like, yeah, and we're going to defund the police and we're going to come after you with the FBI. And also we're going to take away your right to defend yourself. And I was like, okay, this is all insane. You guys are all insane. And so last year, when Patrick Leahy, who'd been in the Senate for 48 years,
Oh my god.
said that he was going to retire. Yeah, that's our senator. And everybody kind of knew then Peter Welch, who's our current House rep, would then run for that Senate seat. That meant both of our federal offices were up for grabs for the first time in about 15 or 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And there were no Republicans at the time willing to step up to the plate. No libertarians, nobody right of center,
In
nobody.
Vermont?
Not a single person, when he
Wow.
announced, was willing to say, yes, I'll run. Yes, I'll do something. And I'll just be honest with you. I don't really want to be a politician. I could go.
That makes you perfect for the job.
I know, right? But like, I'm like, I don't want to be a politician. I wanted to just be the person who was going to help do everybody's videos and maybe help, with some writing some campaign material or something like that. But then nobody was willing to step up. And I was like, what? Nobody on our side of the aisle is going to even consider running for one of these seats. Are you kidding me? And so I just said, well, screw it then. I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where we are today. And we've just had, so I'll tell you a little bit about the nonsense where we are. Let me catch you up to where we are today. So nobody wanted to run, right? And I've been working for the last 3 years or so here in Vermont with both the Libertarian and Republican parties to cultivate right of center candidates who will defend our Second Amendment rights. And actually, traditionally, Vermont had even more permissive gun laws than the federal government did. So we used to be the bastion of Second Amendment rights. And I think it's Article 16 in the Vermont Constitution talks about basically, if you want a cannon, you can have one. Get after it. Okay. So nobody wants to run. I throw my hat in the ring. Then another conservative decides that she's also going to run in March. So about 3 months later. And then a progressive who calls himself an independent also added himself to the Republican primary.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to make this not boring for your viewers. Nikki, okay, ready? So Vermont has open primaries. That means, and there's no party registration. So you as a voter, you don't register for a party. So you can vote in whatever primary you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then open primaries, anybody can put themselves on whatever ballot they want. The party has no ability to control it. And that's how you end up with a progressive on the Republican primary ballot.
Right, because I was going to say some other states have that, and that's how like the Democrats are going and voting who's going to be the Republican nominee, and they're voting for people that they think they can beat.
That is exactly what's happening. So they voted for a guy who's not even a Republican, who was, all about the climate crisis, who says that, talk about Second Amendments. I'm focusing on that because I'm a big fan of yours and all of the work that you do supporting our constitutionally held right to protect ourselves. So Mr. Madden, who is the progressive that has an R behind his name on the ballot, he says that in order for you to own a semi-automatic rifle, so your standard AR, AK, whatever, semi-automatic rifle, you should have to be a part of a well-regulated militia.
Oh, he's one of those.
And so according to him, said well-regulated militia is just another government agency, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, then no, dude, that's not a thing.
Normally you hear about that from folks in like California and New York, and I forget, there was actually some state that tried to pass something like that recently. And obviously it didn't fly.
Well, and this guy is a former Marine. So that's one of the things that's so strange about it is, you're a former Marine, and he's even said from the podium, I've seen what it looks like when a government imposes its will on an unarmed populace. And I'm like, but then you want to take people's guns away. What are you even talking about? So he, like all progressives and all of these folks who only care about the end goal, they don't really have like a real ideology or belief system that they work from. So like, if you're not a Christian, if you're not a religious person, if you don't have some kind of moral framework, you just have this end goal in mind, and you don't care how hypocritical or nonsensical your belief is, as long as it gets you to that end goal.
Right.
Yes.
So I know, so I see people in the chat are talking about Bernie Sanders. When is Bernie Sanders retiring? I mean, is Bernie Sanders really that indicative of the people of Vermont at this point?
He's really not. And this is one of the things that's so frustrating that I've been trying to figure out for the last few years. What we really have here, and the numbers at the voting booth prove this, are a huge majority of Vermonters who just do not participate in elections. So you've got a really strong core group of Democrats, whom are
Mhm.
really progressives, right? These progressives have taken over the Republican Party. My Democrat opponent, Becca Ballant, has been endorsed by the Squad and been endorsed by Bernie
Oh
Sanders.
God,
So,
no.
oh yes, so she is as far left as they come. And interestingly enough, totally thinks we should put boots on the ground in Ukraine, but that's another story. But she's
Okay, that's like the anxiety that's keeping me up at night right now. So we, we need to keep her out.
oh my God, she's terrible. I mean, she is really, really terrible. She is an authoritarian who, went on and on about protecting abortion rights, saying how the government should never get in between a patient and their doctor, and how that relationship is so important, and the government should never have the say over your body. But then
But
she was totally for
mandates.
hokey pokey, turning herself around and everybody else. And you're just like, these people really just have no shame, and they don't care that what they say is nonsensical.
Mhm.
And so no, so Bernie Sanders, indicative of Vermont, no. First of all, Bernie Sanders is not a Vermonter. Okay, that accent is very clearly from New York, so I just want to make sure that is really clear. He is not a Vermonter. And those of us who are from Vermont, okay, so I was born here, raised here. I grew up in a small town called Milton. I graduated from BFA St. Albans. I went to Champlain College, which is here in Burlington, and got my bachelor's degree in accounting, born and raised.
Mhm.
And what I have found more and more as I travel around the state is that so many people are just disenfranchised. They really have been convinced that their vote doesn't matter, that they have no power, that there's nothing that they can do, and it's all just over. And it I'm not going to get emotional. It just is so, it makes me super sad, right? So I used to get really frustrated about it, and I would just pray and be like, God, like, how do I help people take back their own power?
Mhm.
And I don't want to sound like cliche, like, like a crazy person, but like, you guys have literally given agency over to the people you say that you despise and that you don't trust, all because you won't take responsibility for your own self-governance, because you've been convinced through lies that you have no power. And so, that I think is my greatest hope and my greatest goal in this campaign, is to just remind people that their vote actually matters.
I mean, that would be amazing because I think to the people that I know in Vermont. So, I mean, we have some mutual friends in
Yes.
common.
Yes.
But also, so I also have family in East St. Johnsbury. My whole dad's side of the family grew up in Littleton, New Hampshire, just over the
Mm,
border.
yep.
And I mean, none of them are Bernie people as far as I know, and are the complete opposite. But just, as far as them not having power, I mean, I can kind of see why they would feel that way because I mean, you mentioned everybody, the guy that's retiring and the guy that's moving up, and it's like, well, I've never even heard those names. So those guys obviously have never done anything. And Bernie Sanders, well, we know Bernie Sanders.
Well, and that's what, oh my God. Okay. So my good friend, Brad Broyles, did a short, a mockumentary. I don't know what you call it. It's called Free Lunch Express.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a parody of Bernie Sanders's life. And they actually won best comedy at the Cannes Film Festival.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so everybody watching, go check it out. Free Lunch Express. I'm trying to remember what the name of the production company that put it out, but I don't remember. If you Google Free Lunch Express and Brad Royals, I'm sure you'll find it. It's really, really funny.
Mm-hmm.
Because for people who don't know, best as I can tell, and best everyone else who can tell, is he's basically never had a real job.
Right.
He was on a commune. He got kicked off because he wouldn't participate. And all these years, so he was the mayor of Burlington, the city that I live in. And he's a multimillionaire now, and he still takes a pension from our little city of 50,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm just like, dude, we can't fill a pothole here. Why are you taking money out of our coffers when you're already rich? but
Excellent question.
but
I
I think
want
there's
to jump to the super chats. We got a
oh
couple
yeah,
super chats real
yeah.
quick. Let's see. Jesse Meek is in the house. He says, it's pretty clear our government has weaponized the various alphabet agencies against conservatives. I
Yes.
take it you're against this. Any chance we can hear you make that a statement? That would be rare.
Oh, I have said repeatedly from the campaign trail that we need to get rid of the three-letter agencies. The unelected fourth branch of government needs to go away. So the way that our legislature, the way our institutions are supposed to be set up, and probably a lot of your viewers know this, Nikki, is our Congress is supposed to be the greatest deliberative body that has ever been assembled. And in that, they're supposed to be arguing within Congress, within the legislature, within the Senate about what the rules are supposed to be and how it's supposed to be facilitated, right? What are the policies going to be? What are the exact rules and how is it facilitated? And instead, what they do is they pass a bunch of crap in a 10,000 page omnibus spending package that nobody has any idea what it actually says or what's in it. And then they leave it to the three-letter agencies to figure out what the rules are. And that's literally against the Constitution. So I am a firm believer we need to get rid of that unelected fourth branch of government, starting with the Department of Education. Please and thank you. Yeah, I can't. Oh my God, it's so bad up here, Nikki. I can't, like, all of the crazy stuff that people hear about going on in places like Portland and Seattle, all happening here in Vermont. We literally just had, oh my God, we literally just had the girls volleyball team in Randolph, Vermont.
Oh yes,
Did you
I heard
see
about
this?
this.
Oh
yes.
my, so there's a allegedly, now no investigation has gone through, so I want to just preface my statement with saying that no legitimate investigation has been done by the school or anybody else. Allegedly, this biological man, young man, says that he's a girl and therefore he wanted to be on the volleyball team or be in the locker room. And that was good enough to allow that. And apparently he just sat there and watched the girls change. And then, yeah. And then they complained about it. And then they were ejected from their own locker room for hate and bullying or whatever. So, absolute nonsense. It's crazy here. When I say it's crazy here, I mean, it's crazy.
I'll take your word for it.
Yes.
So how did you end up on the Libertarian ticket?
Great question. So in Vermont, we've got major parties and minor parties. So major parties are like Democrat and Republican. And as a matter of fact, the Progressive Party is even considered a major party in Vermont. So they earned they earned major party status. And then they just hijacked the Democrat Party anyway. So major parties have primaries where we go out and vote. And then minor parties have a nominating caucus? Nominating meeting. I don't know what the right word is there, but they have a nominating convention. And so the Libertarian Party had already nominated me at their nominating convention. So, yes. So I was officially on the ballot as of August 4th when the minor party paperwork is due. So August 4th, I was already on. And then if I had won, which I was the presumed winner of the Republican primary. Had I won, I would have gone on the ballot as an RL or an LR.
Oh.
So I would have been a fusion candidate. So we had this. Oh yeah, we had this whole thing planned for my podcast, Generally Irritable. We're live Sundays at 7, and I was going to have the Libertarian Party chair and the Republican Party chair on that Sunday as like a unity. Everybody needs to just work together. If you've got a Libertarian Party candidate in your state legislature, vote for them. If you got a Republican, vote for them. Like, who can we? And it was going to be this great unity message. And then a progressive won the Republican primary. So because of the way the rules are, the state party, I guess, can't really officially endorse me because of like sore loser rules.
Okay.
Even though I think at this point, every county has endorsed me. Every county GOP committee has endorsed me. Many of the towns have. We've started a running list of Republicans for Redic. So, so I've still got the support of Republicans and the Republican Party. Our national committeeman, Jay Shepard, our national committee woman, Suzanne Butterfield, have both made statements of endorsement for me. And those two people are just awesome, great leaders here in Vermont for conservative values. And so, but the Libertarian Party is like super psyched. They're like, we have our first federal candidate in years. They're like, yes. So they're working really hard on my behalf too. And so even though we didn't get to have the Unity podcast episode, people really are coming together because they're mad and they're frustrated that Liam lied and put himself on the ballot. And people in Vermont are really just sick and tired of being bullied and lied to. And so they're really starting to stand up now in a way that we haven't seen in the last several years. So it's really exciting. We've registered a bunch of people to vote. People, in their 50s and 60s, veterans of Vietnam who've never voted in their life. We've registered. Yes, I know. It's so exciting. And I've even got some of the, okay, well, it's not official yet, so I probably shouldn't say anything. But let's just say that there are candidates who did not make it past the primary, who are not in my party, who are considering writing endorsements for me.
Wow.
Because people are so mad. Becca Ballant, my Democrat opponent, is the epitome of a corrupt corporate politician. Mm-hmm. She got a $1 million donation, and nobody wants to touch this because it was donated through an LGBTQIA plus whatever sign PAC. So everybody's like, oh, if you attack her on this, it's because you're homophobic. And I'm like, no, she accepted a $1 million donation from a single Bitcoin billionaire from California.
Wow.
And then in our first debate, started talking about all the ways she wanted to regulate crypto. So, so this is a bought and paid for campaign. She is bought and paid for by special interest groups. And even the Democrats are super mad about it.
Well, I mean, if she won, then I guess she would fit right in, wouldn't she?
Well, and that's, I went to some events in the last week honoring Senator Leahy because I really wanted an opportunity to reach out to Democrats and see what people are thinking about her as their candidate. And the reality is people are not happy about it. They're not. They think, well, she agrees with a lot of the things that I want her to agree with, but she's also for defunding the police, getting rid of qualified immunity. She thinks that the world is going to end in 10 years and therefore bankrupting everybody over climate change is fine. She wants to tax the hell out of fossil fuels in a state where it's winter 9 months out of the year.
Right.
And we're already having record gas prices. And then they see the corruption. And so a lot of Democrats consider themselves Democrats because they're against the corporate welfare from the federal government. They're against this greed. And so she just is that.
Yeah.
And so she really shot herself in the foot. And Democrats are really unhappy about it too.
Okay. Well, that's a good sign.
Yes.
Now, and then this guy, Liam Madden. So I was reading in Vermont Digger that like he won the GOP primary and then wanted to drop out, but only if the Republicans didn't run someone. Did I read that correctly?
Sorry. Yes. So this is what's funny. He also is the epitome of what is wrong with Washington, right? So he's all about disrupting the two-party system, which I can get behind. I get it. I'm running as a libertarian, for God's sake. So, but his whole plan from the beginning. See, this is why I say that he is dishonest, lying, that he lied. He came to the Republicans in the beginning. He put himself on the ballot and everybody was mad, including me, knowing that he was not a Republican. You know, this is a person who was at an event and asked me a question. He said, you know, given that peak oil is going to happen at blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay. I grew up in the 90s. I heard about peak oil in the 90s, kid. Give me a break. Anyway, digressing. So he puts himself on the Republican primary ballot, right? And everybody's mad. And he says, look, I'm an independent. I'm going to run as an independent. But if I don't run as one of the parties, I won't be included in any of the debates. So I haven't checked his numbers this last quarter, but when we checked his numbers before the primary, something like 35,000 of the $40,000 he had raised before the primary all came from people with the last name Madden, including his 2-year-old son. So somehow he got himself all this money. Exactly. So somehow
I wish I had that much money at that age.
or a rich family. You know, because here's the thing here's what's so sketchy about it, right? Is if you personally have money, you can donate everything you want to the campaign. So either he's got a rich family or he had a rich donor that he used to funnel money to his campaign illegally. Yeah. So that's number one. Number two, he came and said, oh, if I'm not included, I'm not going to be able to be in any of the debates. So we said, okay, because as conservatives in Vermont, we understand exactly what it's like to be excluded and to not have a voice here. And so we foolishly allowed him to play in our sandbox and didn't make an aggressive attempt at disqualifying and discrediting him. And we really should have. So he said, I swear I'm going to run as an independent. I'm not going to run because I'm not a Republican and I don't believe, and I'm not going to caucus and I'm not going to blah, 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 blah. Right. So then he doesn't realize that he has to submit a separate petition as an independent to be on the ballot as an independent. You can't just deny the nomination and then get on the ballot. You have to, that's not how it works. You either have to have the 500-person petition to go on the ballot as an independent, or you have to win the primary. That's it. So he failed to plan properly. He didn't, apparently, according to him, he didn't know that he had to have this separate petition. So when he won,
but he's going to go to Congress
as a Republican. So he then refused to relinquish the nomination because he wouldn't be on the ballot. So as soon as it was no longer politically advantageous, he's going back on his word. Just like a good quality progressive and Democrat would.
Yep.
I shouldn't even say that. Politician. Let's be real. Republicans are just as bad.
Accurate.
They're all terrible. Not all of them. Many of them are terrible.
Many of them. I mean, there is a point. I mean, I know that, like, I don't know about in Vermont, but I know that there has been issues in other states and on the federal level, or if you're in a minor party, you don't get into the debates. But I mean, and that's more of an issue of, like, all right, changing how the debates work and what qualifies you for the debates.
Yes.
Not lying about who you are and what you're running for.
Well, and that's what the way it's set up is. It really is. If you are not already a establishment politician, right? So that's what a lot of these press outlets go by, this set of rules where you have to have raised at least $35,000. You have to have won at least a certain percentage of statewide votes. So if you've never run for statewide office before, or if you don't have a wealthy family or a wealthy Bitcoin billionaire to fill your coffers, if you're a legitimate grassroots working class candidate, they don't want to hear from you. Like those Vermonters, this is what's so frustrating, right? Now, those Vermonters who feel like they don't have a voice, they literally don't. But if they actually, and I don't want to sound like a jerk, okay, I don't know how this is going to come off, but I'm going to say it anyway. Okay, 113,000 people voted for Donald Trump in the state of Vermont in 2020.
Yeah.
If every person who voted for Donald Trump donated just $10 to my campaign, I'd have $1.3 million. But I don't have $1.3 million. And so, like, the reality is it's either money or people who will pick up the phone and make phone calls, put out flyers. And the sad truth is here, people are not willing to come out of pocket for campaigns because they think that it's hopeless.
Yep.
But if they actually didn't think it was hopeless, we would have a ton of money and I could be flooding the airways with ads. And so it's like, okay, well, if you don't want to come out of pocket, I get it. We're all working class. We're all just trying to make it. But $10 or like a couple hours a month to put out flyers. Like, if you think it's so bad, and I, you know what? I'm not just talking to Vermonters right now, Nikki. I'm talking to all of your viewers, everyone who can hear the sound of my voice right now. If it matters to you, if you don't like the direction this country is going in, if you are afraid for your kids and you're afraid for the future, if you don't want $4 gas or $5 or $10 gas, depending, if you don't want record inflation, you have to do something about it. You have to do something. It's on you. Like, the power is supposed to be within us as Vermonters, as Americans. They have a responsibility to listen to us. And so we just have to remember that we actually hold the power, not our elected officials. And we need to overwhelm them with emails and phone calls, telling them exactly what we want them to do and exactly how we want them to vote. And so that is, I know I sound like a broken record here, but if I don't get anything else, if nothing else comes out of this campaign, if we get a bunch of people activated into their own self-governance, it'll be a win.
Mm-hmm. Well, and hopefully you don't get people that just go in there and vote down the ballot and see this guy with the R.
Makes me crazy. It makes me absolutely crazy. And it's so funny. We've got these folks who online trolls. We've got them everywhere. There's a couple
there's some in the chat.
There's a couple people who are like, oh my God, oh, Rhino this and Rhino that. And, they talk all kinds of smack about people not really being conservatives. But now they're like saying really ugly, untrue stuff about me and supporting Liam Madden. And I'm like, oh, is this a real person? Is this one of those bots people talk about? Is this just somebody who's in here to like be a butthole? And like, I bet this is really a Democrat just trying to mess with us. What is this?
And I thought that like the bots were just like a conspiracy theory, and I don't mean like the conspiracy theories that actually came true, like the hokey pokey passports. I mean the conspiracy theories like the birds aren't real. And then there was the whole thing about Elon Musk buying Twitter and then not buying Twitter and now buying Twitter again. And it was like, oh yeah, there's all these bots. And I was like, oh wait, that's real? I had no idea. Well, I thought it was just something that the left made up to like discount conservatives and libertarians.
You know what? Well, and this is the thing is, there's only so many times these things can end up being true, until you go, okay, hold on a second. Maybe we can't actually trust anything that these people say.
Robert Graham wants to know where he can send you a donation.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, everybody can go to my website. Okay, so there's two versions of it, but I usually give people the one that is least likely to spell my name wrong, because everybody spells both of my names wrong every single time, all the time, even when I spell it for people. It's amazing. So redicforcongress.com. It's REDIC for congress.com. Just 5 letters. There's no extra letters. REDIC. No duplicates. REDIC for congress.com. There's a link to donate through WinRed. And then there's also an address at the bottom in the footer if people prefer to mail a check, because I know a lot of people don't like using WinRed.
And your website should also be linked in the description.
Yes.
As well.
And So I'm Ericka Redic on Twitter, ERICKAREDIC. Ericka Redic. You can see why everybody spells my name wrong. So Ericka Redic on Twitter, and then on all the other socials, we're working on getting our presence up on the alternatives like Rumble, and those places.
Oh, you're better than I am.
Oh, I'm trying. It's so much. Like, people don't
It's so
understand.
hard.
You don't, like, you have to sit there and let your computer just upload for however, and Rumble takes forever to upload. It is
Okay, I'm glad to hear you say that, because that's the whole reason why I don't use it. And so I haven't been on it in months, and I didn't know if it had gotten better. Apparently not.
I haven't done it in a couple months either, because I just was like, okay, I can't just sit here, and then you can't do anything else on your computer because it sucks down the energy so much. I don't know what the RAM
Meanwhile,
or
my
freaking
baby is
whatever.
over here smashing the keyboard and deleting things, and that's why I'm not on Rumble anymore.
So my social media is called Generally Irritable, and that's me. My little logo there. I am riding an eagle. It's ridiculous, Nikki. It is. I got this done. It is me in armor riding an eagle in armor, but it's got my actual face on it. It's so stupid.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. But I started it a couple years ago when I'd started making some videos regarding politics, and then I moved home in 2018. I moved back. So I moved to Texas in 2010, met my husband, fell in love, married a Texan who's also a filmmaker. We moved out to Hollywood for a couple years. That was an experience. And the last vestiges of my liberalism were nailed into a coffin there. And then moved back to Vermont in 2018. And it was like they had passed the first gun laws ever passed in our state. And it was like, wait, what? They passed abortion up to the point of birth, removed personhood status of the unborn. Not even kidding you. That's a whole other story. And there was just all this stuff happening. And then it was like taxes were going up. And I was like, and then Christians won't admit they're Christians, and conservatives won't admit they're conservatives. And I was like,
sounds like Massachusetts.
I grew up in a place where it didn't matter who you were, how you identified. Everybody got to let their freak flag fly. And then I guess something happened while I was gone, where everybody decided that the only people who are allowed to talk are the ones who are letting their freak flag fly, and everybody else must comply. And I just said, and so when I see the news, and this was a big part of my hashtag walk away story, if you will. I used to be a VPR supporter, okay, an NPR supporter. I listened to the news. I like to get, I listened to Car Talk, all this stuff. And then I'll never forget, I was driving on what was it? It was like the 101 or something in California. I was on one of the highways, stuck in traffic, listening to NPR. And they said, they were doing a story about how there was no crisis at the southern border. So this was back in 2018, 17 or 18. And how Donald Trump was this racist, and, there's no crisis at the border, no crisis at the border. And I was like, fake news. Fake news. And I started screaming and swearing at my radio, because my nephew is a Border Patrol agent in McAllen, Texas. And I can tell you that there is a freaking crisis at the border. Like, I couldn't believe it. And that was where it just like all really started unraveling for me. And it really, my husband and I were an interracial couple. My husband is Black. Our neighbors discriminated against us because we were Christians. Not because we were like mean to them or did anything. They just found out we were religious people and they stopped talking to us.
Oh, wow.
That was the summer we had blackouts. So we were without power for 4 days in the middle of the summer. And it was just like, this is what it looks like at the end of all of these liberal policies that we've been talking about for years. All of the green energy and and you people who are supposed to be so open to everybody, you're actually the most closed off and hateful people I've ever met.
Wow.
it wasn't the the people from the boonies of Vermont or the boonies of Texas who were mean and ugly and hateful. It was the white liberals in California. And so it just all was like, I was like, I got to stand up. I got to say something. I have to, if there isn't a news media outlet for conservatives here in Vermont, then I'm going to be it. And so we've got a couple of online newspapers that are awesome here: Vermont Daily Chronicle, True North Reports. We've got the Ethan Allen Institute, who are all conservative leaning. But we had no one making video, no one producing the news, no one showing up doing live streams at events for conservatives and things like that. And so that's how Generally Irritable was born. I just went the long way around the barn to tell you how I started Generally Irritable. And we called it Generally Irritable because I'm generally irritable when I'm talking about politics. So,
I think if you're not generally irritable when talking about politics, you're not paying attention.
Oh my God. Well, this is one of the things why I was telling you earlier, why I love your channel and your videos so much. And I think this is so good for people like you and I who want to spread conservative values, who want to spread these constitutional values. You do it. First of all, you're stunning and you're beautiful. And you do it with this smile on your face, and you've got this like Southern Belle, bless your heart vibe. And I just love that. It's so relatable, and people can share that. And you're not like, well, maybe I just don't think you're offensive because I agree with you, but I don't think you're offensive at all. Like, you're not like, you people are effing stupid and I hate you, like some people do. And because we need to persuade people that our ideas are better. And you don't do that by cussing them out and telling them how stupid they are all the time.
No. I mean, and unfortunately, a lot of the libertarian folks out there, and even some of the gun people, it's just so like dry, like just staring at the camera and monotone parroting something. I don't even know what. I just like I listen for 5 seconds and I'm like, nah.
Yes. We need to find those voices that really do a good job of articulating what we believe, what our values are, and just share those videos, like, subscribe, support financially, do whatever you got to do.
Because YouTube ain't gonna do it.
I can tell you that until I decided to run for office, my YouTube channel, my Facebook channel got way more reach. I now have to pay for the amount of views I used to get organically before I got converted into a candidate.
Really?
Yes. Oh, wow. Yes. Oh, yes. I get almost no organic reach anymore on any of my videos.
Yeah.
And I'm not even big time. Like, I'm nobody. Why are you suppressing my stuff? So that just goes to show you that it doesn't matter. If you use keywords or you say anything, they're looking for that so they can suppress your reach.
Oh yeah, and they've got like the weird AI stuff that like watches your videos as it's processing and like listens for. It's so creepy. It's so creepy.
And there's a part of me that gets it. There's a part of me that, I don't want to see people getting murdered or bestiality or any of this weird, gnarly, nasty stuff that people do on the internet. Okay. Like there is a part of me that understands some of the AI censoring stuff, right? Like if somebody's like doing a live stream and they're murdering people, you want people to be able to rapidly report and take stuff down, right? And so, but they go way too far with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is now, you can no longer justify it as safety or misinformation, or, when I still have a community guideline strike on YouTube.
I do too.
For a video I did with medical misinformation that is now proven by the CDC, but I still have a community guideline strike for it.
Yep. Same. It was in a live stream, and it was when the Fauci emails came out, and Rand Paul was questioning him in the Senate hearing. Yeah.
You're not allowed to say true things. Cut
Well,
that out.
I don't even think I said anything. I was just like, here are Fauci's emails. Here is what Rand Paul says. Strike. Months later.
Yep. It is really outrageous. And so I don't know. That's why I think after this campaign, I'm going to make more of a concerted effort to figure out Rumble, Getter, locals, and stuff like that. Because I do think that there has to come a point where we all say, no, I'm not going to participate in your game anymore. I'm just not going to use this app anymore. And there's a little part of me every time I open up YouTube and binge some videos that I feel a little guilt, because I'm like, I'm supporting these people. How can I get rid of Gmail? I need to get rid of all my Google everything. I need to get all of my money out of this stupid tech giant. Rob them of their ability to censor us.
Pretty much impossible.
It is. When you think about even, I've got an Android phone. This phone doesn't work unless I have a Gmail account. And so they really do set things up for you to be dependent. Whether it's Google Maps, even the first time I remember getting a report at the end of a month or something like that. Here's all the places you visited. And I was like, what? Why are you recording everywhere I went? I didn't know that this app was doing that. And it's like, oh my gosh. So I think that there is so much room for improvement. And I'm normally not a government is the answer kind of girl. But I think that when we see big tech giants, so I'm sure you've heard a lot of people talking about Section 230.
Yep.
And from my experience, what I've seen, both the left and the right are arguing about it incorrectly. And like they don't actually understand what it is. And so Section 230 basically just says that anybody who has something on the internet is not responsible for stuff on the internet. Just like if I say I'm going to commit a crime while I'm on the phone, Verizon Wireless is not responsible for what I say over the phone, right?
Right.
You can't sue AT&T because you put up a website that's shisty, okay? These kinds of things.
Right.
But what we can do is bring antitrust lawsuits against Facebook, against Instagram, against all YouTube, Google, all of these organizations, against Amazon, who owns over 70% of the web hosting capability.
That much.
Yes. So that is way too much. If Amazon can just decide to take you off of the internet,
like they did to Parler,
right? So these companies have way too much power. And the way that you address that is through antitrust lawsuits and by putting in very specific language and law to prevent them from infringing on our constitutional rights. The government instituted among men was created to protect our constitutional rights from the government and from corporations like this trying to infringe on them. And so I think we need to take advantage of the system that is set up to protect our rights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I know that Florida tried to do that. I'm not really sure how that's working out in practice at the moment, but
I do think I am curious because I did read one of these the other day. I'm trying to remember what app I was looking at. I don't remember what it was, but I remember actually going ahead and reading the terms of service and what all it takes access to off of my phone. And I'm like, I am allowing this corporation access to my contacts, to my pictures. They can basically read my emails. I mean, we literally give over all of our privacy to all of these corporations every single day. And we don't ever think about it. until the time when you then become a target of the FBI or whatever, right? Like I was just watching James O'Keefe do a talk at the Convention of States Liberty Summit last night. And he was talking about how Verizon and all these other companies gave over his private information to the feds without a warrant, or it was like before their warrant or something like that. But like when you just get on the wrong side of the FBI or the CIA and they want to destroy you, you know, Michael Flynn and some of these other people, they had money, power, and influence and people who could help them. What if you're just one of the, I don't know if I can say this word. What if you're somebody who decided to go use your constitutional right to protest what you felt like was an unfair electoral process?
Oh, yeah, you can't say that. You have to say it that way.
So if you're one of those people, we're going to lock you up for a year with no charges, where, you know, in solitary confinement, and not give you due process. And so I think any organization that has that much power to ruin your life, where they can just take your stuff. They cannot. No, Verizon should not be turning that stuff over. Your internet provider should not be turning that stuff over.
Nope.
We should not live in a surveillance state. We're Americans, for God's sake. Like, you don't get to spy on me if I haven't done anything wrong. And so I think, you know, getting back to that question earlier about, will I say something about these 3-letter agencies? I mean, the corruption that has been exposed is really shocking. And I think as Americans, we really need to get people elected who will shrink the size of the federal government and shrink the scope of power that they have over the everyday American.
Mm-hmm. So I do want to ask you, taking a page out of one of the news stories about your campaign, but just so that everyone else knows, what would you say are your top priorities?
Ooh, great question.
To Congress.
So I have 3 bills in particular that I'm going to introduce first year. First one is term limits for federal officials. So term limits, you know, for obviously we got it for president, we need it for Senate, we need it for House, we need it for government officials. You know, why was Anthony Fauci head of the NIH for 50 years? When that guy,
what's funny is there are some people that still think he's a practicing doctor. Yes, during his last 50 years in government.
He's a politician. He's nothing but a politician. And so a lot of the heads of these agencies, all they are politicians. So first year, term limits. Okay. Then the second one that I have to admit, I got the idea from Charlie Kirk, actually. He was talking about a man named Foster Freeze. And he wanted to pass single issue bills. Okay. So one bill, one appropriation, one topic. So none of these.
Wait, should be.
Exactly. Not these 10,000 page omnibus packages where you can just shove a bunch of, you know, $14 million to throw yourselves parties at the Wilson Center, or what was it? I can't remember. Hundreds of thousands of dollars to study the effects of cocaine on the promiscuity of carrier pigeons. Okay. If you haven't read Rand Paul's Annual Festivus, everyone needs to Google Rand Paul. Oh, Google, there you go. Annual Festivus, Rand Paul, and read it. It is spectacularly terrible.
There used to be someone else that did one too. Oh, it was I would come around New Year's every year. I did a video on it way back. It was, I want to say it was like Jeff Flake or something, and he would find all the weird government spending. Like there was one about duck reproductive parts. in there. Like, oh God, I
I
don't remember what it was
remember
called.
one years ago where there was a study of the viscosity of ketchup, because that is super important for Americans to know and spend money on. Like, that's what's worth going into $3 trillion in debt for this year's budget for.
I have
I
to
don't
look this
understand.
up. I have to
It's
find
just,
it.
yeah, it's outrageous. So single issue bills, and then
Pig
the
book. That's his thing. Pig book. That's what it
pig
is.
book. Oh, cool. Who is it?
Jeff Flake.
Jeff Flake, pig book. I like that. Because pork, I'm
Yes.
guessing. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I like it. And then the last one that I would like to introduce my first year, well, I mean, I'd like to introduce a bunch of stuff, but the third most important one is a balanced budget initiative. So, you cannot write debt into the budget. Let's start with that. Let's just start with that. No, you cannot print money in order to fulfill your budget. And no, you can't raise taxes. So, what can you do with the money that you already have? And then after that, I'd like to see a massive reduction just in government spending. I'd love to see some kind of not arbitration. What's the word? When people just leave and then you don't hire back. Attrition. So
Okay.
something where, we shrink by attrition, force a certain percentage reduction, get rid of a lot of these 3-letter agencies. And I think if we can just be reasonable and rational and do math, right? I'm an accountant by trade, okay? I have a bachelor's degree in accounting, 20 years of experience helping small businesses make good decisions, good financial decisions, helping families make good financial decisions. I want to do that for the federal government. So it is very easy if we are not a bunch of greedy people to cut this budget. We see, we've got a massive labor shortage in this country. And so can you imagine, Nikki, if we did like an across the board 21% personnel budget across the government? I would exclude the military at this point because we're about to go into World War III and we're not making recruiting numbers to begin with. So
Yeah.
everywhere else but the military, I'd like to see a percentage drop in personnel, because that is massive. Salaries, benefits, pensions, and things like that would be better used in the private sector where we really need to fill jobs.
Absolutely. Well, and at this point, isn't it like 60% of the workforce is the government?
In Vermont, yes. I don't know if it's 60%. I know in America, we have a massive bureaucracy. And the state of Vermont, it's actually more than that. The state government is the main, how do I say this, beneficiary of our taxpayer dollars. So more of our taxpayer dollars go into the Vermont bureaucracy than for goods and services for the people we say we want to help. I love it.
But without taxes, how will we have roads? How will we fix the potholes? Well, you just said that they couldn't even fix a pothole.
Well, and that's what, funny enough, like we had roads and bridges before we had the federal government, before we had states and all this other stuff. People managed to build roads and bridges and all of that other stuff.
That's a conspiracy theory.
Plus, you have like in states like Texas, they have private companies build the roads. And now some of them are toll roads, full disclosure. But like, would you rather pay a toll or would you rather pay a percentage of your income to a bureaucracy, right? Like, I just think this idea that the private, that the marketplace would not immediately pick up the slack somehow, and probably in a better, more efficient, more effective, cheaper way is absolutely ridiculous, because we've seen it across the board 1,000 times.
And it's funny. I do this kind of just like came together in my mind just now as a perfect example. There are a lot of folks that have come across my channel, and even though they are right of center, they say like, "Oh my God, it's so ridiculous that you want lower taxes or this or that, because then we won't have goods and services, and roads won't be built, and things won't be taken care of." But just look at, fellow conservatives and libertarians, the gun control that goes on in states, California specifically. Well, California said, well, you can't have this. You can't have a what was it? A detachable magazine. So someone in California created the bullet button to get around it. And people keep finding these loopholes and like, oh, well, you're saying this is illegal. Well, let me make a file to 3D print that instead. Then I'll go sell it at the New York buyback and make $21,000.
30 grand. Oh my God. I'm like, you guys are so dumb. You have no idea how dumb you are. It's amazing. I just think, here's the thing. Like, this is not a popular position as a libertarian, but I say this to really prove a point. I would be fine paying taxes and paying for things like a social safety net, maybe some Section 8 housing for, like a mom who is a widow and she needs help, figuring out how to get by. She doesn't have any family, or somebody, like, I've benefited from social services in my past before. So I would be happy to pay for that for people who actually needed it. I'd be happy to pay for all the roads and bridges and have a driver's license and whatever. If we just cut all of the other bull crap out, why are we throwing you guys parties? Why is it that our elected officials make a higher salary than the average American? Plus, they get full benefits. Like, you shouldn't be getting rich or comfortable in public service. You should go, do your time, and then leave. That is how it was supposed to be, which is why I'm a firm believer in term limits. The fact that Vermont had a senator for 48 years is outrageous.
That no one outside of Vermont had ever heard of.
Oh my God. And that's what, and this is the thing, is you sort of get an idea of what is wrong with the system when you run for office, because every single day, multiple times a day, especially early on in the campaign, you're getting all of these emails and letters in the mail from organizations like National Realtors Association, Let's Grow Kids, Chamber of Commerce, NRA, whatever it is. And almost all of them, it reads, the National Realtors Association was 18 pages long.
Oh my God.
Okay. And every single question is, in what way will you infringe on the constitutional rights of your neighbors? And how much money will you take out of their pocket and give to us? And of course, it doesn't exactly say that, but it says, oh, well, the National Realtors Association is supporting this blah, 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 which would create a fund of millions of dollars for blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, so you are asking me to take money out of my neighbor's pocket and give it to you in exchange for your power and influence.
Yep.
And then I look at my Democrat opponent, and she's got the endorsement of all of these organizations who I either didn't submit because I was like, I'm not going to infringe on people's rights or take their money on your behalf. So then you look at her page and she's got all these endorsements, and you go, those are all people that she promised to give your money to.
Mm-hmm.
She promised the 60% of my income that the state and federal government take out of our pockets. You promised to a bunch of randos. Why? And so I think that there's so much corruption. There's so much money in politics. And we really have to start rejecting politicians who make promises that create the problems that we're dealing with.
Very well said.
Yeah. They're terrible. They're terrible.
They are. They are. But I like the idea of those bills, the single issue bill, the term limit bill.
Balanced
Yes.
budget. Yes.
Balanced budget.
Yep. That's what, we need to restore accountability, transparency, and integrity to the federal government. That is my main goal for going to Washington.
I think that is a very, what's the word? Valiant goal. Sorry, I had a mom brain moment for a second. I'm like, what's that word?
Yeah, I like that. I feel like I need a sword.
Well, I mean, you already have a logo in armor riding an eagle.
That is true. It is epic. It is really epic.
Might as well add it in. Well, I'm going to see, does anyone in the chat have some specific questions? I know that we had a couple in the beginning. I'm going to scroll up and see, but people can submit them now. I know it's a little over an hour, but I haven't gotten the magical text message that baby's pissed off yet. So
thank you, Liberty Baby. Good job, Dad.
I will say though, one of the things that you were talking about, some striking some stuff off of the getting rid of some of the bureaucracy. I know that there was a lot of, libertarians as a whole kind of like poop on Donald Trump. But one of the things that I really liked that he did, at least in the beginning, was like, okay, you want to sign a new law? Well, then we have to scratch 2 off the books. That was awesome.
That is exactly what I'm talking about.
And
that
none of the libertarians want to talk about that ever.
You know what? It's because Donald Trump is unfortunately one of those figures who will not be remembered for any of the good stuff that he did. At least not in the media and generally. And libertarians are just as likely as Republicans, as Democrats, to believe whatever nonsense they hear on TV or on YouTube or whatever. And so, there was a lot to criticize about Donald Trump. But there was a lot of really good stuff too. He had the Platinum Plan and economic opportunity zones, specifically targeting inner cities to try to revitalize those and help end not system, but let's be real. Like if you grow up in an inner city and everybody is dealing drugs and messed up, like that's just the life you end up in.
Oh, absolutely.
And so if we can bring back, Black owned businesses, Hispanic owned businesses into these cities and create opportunities to disrupt that pattern, to me, that was really important and a really big deal. He had the first openly gay cabinet member, even though they try to say Biden did, where they're trying to make it so that they decriminalize homosexuality around the world, record peace deals in the Middle East, record peace around the world.
Yeah, we weren't like looking at that. Like I wasn't ordering iodine pills in case of nuclear fallout.
$1.89 gas, the best economy for everybody in recorded history. And so, yeah, he was Donnie from Queens. And his tweets read like Donnie from Queens. And anybody who thought you were going to get anything different than that was going to be sorely mistaken. So, so it's really too bad. The whole thing, it just is really too bad that our system right now is so corrupt that we can't trust anything that's coming out of the media. We can't trust our elected officials. Trust in all of our institutions has just been demolished. And I like what Ben Shapiro says. That Donald Trump was the coroner, not the murderer. Okay. He came in and said, oh yeah, politics is dead. This is all dead and screwed up. And he called it out. He didn't kill it, right? He just said, oh yeah. And then he took advantage of it in a way that by and large actually made the country better. And
Yeah.
you know, sorry if you think he sucks, but we were all way better off 3 years ago.
Yes.
All I'm saying.
Yes. I did see a couple of questions come in. Let's see. People are asking where Liberty Baby is. That's not a question for you. Liberty Baby is downstairs with Daddy, hopefully sleeping. Though the baby cage is behind me, she is not currently in it.
The baby penitentiary.
Let's see. Tisha Russo says, how do you feel about repealing the NFA and the Gun Control Act?
The NFA.
National Firearms Act. That's the suppressors, machine
repeal
guns,
all that.
frames and receivers at this point.
I would repeal all that. I would repeal everything. This is not popular. This is not a popular opinion, and I've been told I probably shouldn't say this. But the truth is, I am a Second Amendment absolutist. If I could afford an F-35, I would buy one. I would buy a cannon if
How
that
cool
made
would it
any
be to
kind
have
of
a
sense.
tank?
Oh my God. Can you imagine? Even just like a little mini one that I could park in my garage. Oh,
To this day, I mean, this is back in the day, but to this day, my favorite, I saw people talking about FPS Russia for some reason in the chat. My favorite video of his was when he like got in a tank and like went to the McDonald's drive-thru. I'm like, yes, I would love to do that.
I want a tank. I think that that would be fabulous. I think it was up until even like, oh, when was it? Somebody showed me an old, like a Sears catalog or something like that, where you could literally buy a cannon, mail order in America in the last 100, like within the last century. So I just think, you know, it's so funny how people are like, oh, we need to ban guns because there's all this gun violence. We don't have any more guns than we used to 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. They've had automatic guns, semi-automatic guns, you know, machine guns or whatever for literally ever. That's not new technology. So why is it that we didn't have any of these problems back in the day when it was actually more likely and easier for you to get when you could literally have your own cannon?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, you can't really believe that it's the gun anymore. You can't say that it is the tool. There is something wrong with our culture and our society that is leading people to do really messed up stuff. And we should look at that, why that is, not the method that they choose to use.
Right. Because, I mean, there's even in these countries where guns are banned, there's plenty of violence happening there. And
how would you like an acid attack instead?
yeah,
How would you just,
thank you.
how about we just permanently disfigure you because you're a woman who refuses to wear a head covering? Like, yeah, that sounds like a better option.
Ban acid.
How about the stabbings? Acid. How about trucks? Oh my God, it's so stupid. It's just like people. What I think is so interesting about folks who tend to be left of center, not all of them, and maybe I'm lumping people into categories that I shouldn't be, and that's fair. But I think that there is this notion that you can legislate a person's mind and heart. That if you just put enough rules out there and you call them bad names, that somehow that's going to get people to stop committing crimes or doing bad things. And I mean, it's an ideal that I wish were real, but it's not. And if you don't take human nature into account when you're writing laws or looking at policy, then you're neglecting the biggest variable in anything that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it was I don't remember if it was on Simpcast that I said it when Liberty Baby and I were on Simpcast a couple of weeks ago. But you know, these people, they think that on the one hand, the whole world is racist and violent and homophobic and bigoted and all of the isms.
Yep.
But on the other, oh, well, it's the gun's fault and it's not people's fault. People are awesome. It's like,
And then we should
which
like
is
give
it?
them more control over us in the government. You cannot hold these two beliefs simultaneously. You can't.
No. Well, I mean,
And
you can, but I mean, maybe that's what kind of makes them so screwed up.
well, and this is why I said earlier, like, you can't, they have an end goal that they want to reach, and they don't care what reality or what truth they have to ignore in order to get there. And so you just described it perfectly. Yes.
We have someone that is saying, can you comment on President Biden's remarks regarding citizens needing F-16s and Patriot missiles?
That comment was the evidence for why there should be no gun regulation by the government.
Right.
Okay. Are you threatening me? Excuse me, Beavis and Butthead. I'm a kid who grew up in the 90s. Yeah, I mean, literally, that is the evidence for why the government cannot be trusted. Okay, so Benjamin and I, wait, hold on one second.
I feel like we're about to have props.
Okay, I just had to show you this. I'm so sorry. So,
I was gonna say, I feel like we're about to get props.
You are. My husband and I wrote this book, Reasons to Trust the Government.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it empty? That's great.
$9.99 on Amazon.com. You too can have this really beautiful notebook to share with your friends, to show them all the ways that the government can be trusted, which is none.
I wish I had thought of that. That's brilliant.
You know what it was? It was when the pandemic started and they were shutting people down and saying that you're not essential and, you're allowed to take care of your family, but you're not. And you retail workers, yeah, you who make the least amount of money, you still have to come to work because, I mean, it was just like the way that they were talking about things and doing things. And you're going, wait a second. And then I remember I looked at my husband at one point and I said, I don't know why anybody trusts the government. And we were having this whole conversation, like if you've been in the military, a lot of people who are, both of us have family from the, both my uncles were in Vietnam, both his parents were in the Army. My dad was in the Air Force. Everybody in our family was military. How does anybody trust the government? And then, so we were talking about and I looked at him and I was like, I don't know why Black people trust the government. And he looked at me and he goes, yeah, good point. And I was like, yeah, everything bad that's ever happened to Black people basically has been sanctioned by the government, whether it was redlining or slavery or Jim Crow, that was the government. Mm-hmm. And so when you have our
gun control laws.
So the first gun control laws were to take the hands out of freed slaves and Black people in the Jim Crow South. So what? And so he goes, yeah. And I said, we need to write a book. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, it's going to be called Reasons to Trust the Government. And he was like, okay. And I was like, it's going to be blank. And so we actually got a designer to help make a really beautiful cover to make a point. But I just think that when you hear the president of the United States say, well, it doesn't matter if we take your semi-automatics away because really, if you want to fight us, you need a fighter jet. And I'm just like, are you threatening the American people with bombing, sir? Like, do you realize what you're saying right now? We saw what happened in Venezuela. That was only like 2 years ago. Okay. Those of us who have a memory longer than a flea, have literally seen a tyrannical government take the guns away from people and then take over. You've got Australia where they did the gun buyback and then they locked everybody down and put them in freaking internment camps, basically. Like, no, you can't have my guns. No, and now I'm going to go figure out how to buy an F-16. Can I buy an F-16? I don't even know.
I mean, not only that, it's like, oh, people without like nukes and fighter jets can't fight the government. Can we go look at Vietnam, Afghanistan, maybe?
Yes. Thank you very much. It's so stupid. I mean, really what it is, Nikki, is they count on people not paying attention, not knowing history, not being well versed in the news and world affairs. You and I are probably a couple of people who make sure we're looking at what's going on around the world. You're probably especially, researching gun buybacks, gun restrictions, and things like that. And so you see firsthand, right? You get to watch the progression, but many Americans are just living their lives, raising their kids, going to work, watching movies, doing whatever, going bowling, whatever. They're not thinking about this stuff. And so they just count on people reading the headlines and not actually really knowing what's going on.
Yesterday, I was like, wow, I bet there's so many people in the world right now that don't know that Ukraine and Poland are handing out radiation pills and that the US just bought like $290 billion worth of radiation pills and that Poland is asking us for nukes. I'm like, I bet most people don't
preemptive
know.
strike. These fools are asking the US to preemptively do a nuclear strike on another nuclear armed country. Again, let me just repeat. Becca Ballant, my Democrat opponent, believes that the United States should be engaged in a war against Russia to remove Vladimir Putin. She in our debate, she said she is for US engagement. And so this is the last thing that we need in Congress right now are more war hawks, more people who don't think it's important to defend our southern border, that human beings are being trafficked across. They don't think that matters, but they think that we should go protect a border of another country.
Right.
With nukes. I don't understand.
I don't either.
When you ask me why am I running for Congress, I'm like, this is why. Because freaking stupid people are running, and I can't have that. Like, I at least need to say something.
Jesse wants to know if that book is available on Audible.
It does have chapter headings. It does have an acknowledgement.
Say, I thought that I saw like 3 words in there somewhere.
Yeah, there's an acknowledgement, a conclusion at the end. And a wait, did we do acknowledgements? Okay, so there's a title page, contents page.
Well, I did just get the magical text message.
Liberty baby wants mama.
Yes.
I love it.
Well, but I mean, we got an hour and 20 minutes out of her.
That's awesome.
That's pretty amazing.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Nikki. This was so much fun. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for not being a sucky politician. I've had some people on here and I'm like, oh man.
Trust me, I know. I've interviewed some of them too.
Well, so thank you again for coming on. Do you want to remind everyone where they can find you and where they can send donations?
Yes. So my website is redicforcongress.com. It's REDIC for Congress.com. My Twitter is Ericka Redic, ERICKA REDIC. And on all of the other socials besides Twitter, it's generally Irritable. You can go, we've got, especially YouTube. I just put up a bunch of clips from an old debate. You can see the most recent debate with VT Digger, the only news organization that included me in the debate.
Wow.
And now Becca Ballant has started backing out of all the other debate appearances. So it's worth going to check it out. So yeah, go to the website, donate, check out Generally Irritable. There's also so you've got the debate stuff on there. I've got a couple of comedic shorts. One about the Convention of States, actually. They're doing their leadership summit this weekend, so that's worth checking out.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, it says that her website did not highlight to be able to open or put it in. Okay, those links are in the description, guys.
Okay.
I just put them in the chat, but they're in the description as well. And I'm gonna, as soon as we finish up, I'm going to update the description so that Generally Irritable is in there as well.
Yay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. Thank you, the folks that sent in some super chats and tips. And thank you to the mods for getting rid of that weird bot, that R-rated bot that was in the chat. I was like, delete.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, and everyone have a good rest of your weekend and a good night.
Thank you all. Bye.